coverage of an African safari and may include animal kills and carcasses. Viewer discretion is advised.
And this is Safari Live.
Ready. Standing by.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You are live, you are live.
Good morning, and we must apologize for all the gremlins this morning. They seem to be out and about in full force, but that's okay because we've got the Nkuhumas, and of course they have a buffalo kill. What a surprise there. Absolute killing machines these beautiful girls are. Isn't that absolutely wonderful? Now I very quickly want to say hello and introduce myself so that we can let the real stars of the show take over. But good morning again. My name is Taylor, of course, and on camera with me we've got Zander, aka Eggsy. I have to remind myself what his real name is, but let's have another look at these beautiful lions. Now, we heard them calling last night quite late, and they sounded very close to camp, and of course they are indeed close to camp. But we didn't hear the distress calls of a buffalo, which I thought that we would have heard when they took it down, but perhaps it was an older cow that they were feeding. Ooh. I think keep your volume raised for this. There is a lot of growling and tension around the carcass this morning. You can see they've eaten quite a bit of it. They've eaten some of the face, and it looks like they've started on the hindquarters. So I think that they've been munching away, and when we did see the cubs up and about, well, you can still see them moving around. Those bellies are fat. They have eaten every little bit that they could, and I'm sure that there was lots of suckling involved as well, because we know how greedy the Nkuhumas are, especially at this stage. And look at this one now balancing on the tree. Oh, no, you're going to have to practice those tree climbing skills a little bit better. What a fantastic way to start the morning, to come around the corner and have all the Nkuhumas here. There's also one Birmingham, but it's quite awkward. He's sitting behind us. We'll have a look at him in a moment. And it seems as though it's Mfumo, but I haven't seen Tinyo. I don't know if he's still around. Maybe he's moved off now. There is another vehicle moving around, so as soon as they settle down, then you should be able to hear the growling of the lions a little bit better. But let's just let them get settled into their position. It's quite a tricky spot. There's lots of trees around. As you can see, we're looking in between the branches. Oh my goodness. I think I'm going to have to go forward because it sounds like there's two cubs just out of range. We can't see them having a big argument about something. We're just gonna let Taxon quickly reposition and get in here. I don't want to have too many vehicles moving at once. On something I'll tell you about, a little exercise we very quickly did as one of the things you learn in guiding is these different techniques. And I know the lions are behind us. Okay, wait, let's go back. Okay, Taxon has stopped moving now. You can see them fighting over a buffalo tail. Lots of tension this morning, but you saw as soon as it got a little bit too rough, the two older cubs were fighting over the buffalo tail. The adults went in to intervene and solve the problem, and it seems as though they've done a little bit of reprimanding. I've seen Auntie Amber Eyes doing lots of reprimanding this morning. The cubs are really getting to that point where they're almost like teenagers that refuse to do anything that their parents say. So it's good that the mothers of the pride, and including Auntie Amber Eyes and the youngest female, are taking a stance and starting to reprimand them and put them back in their place, just to remind them that there is a pecking order, especially around the carcass. These cubs get quite cheeky, and of course, if the males are around, this will only end up in the youngsters a possibility of them getting hurt. And it's good to see that the females are trying to sort them out, and just to remind them that they are not the kings of the jungle just yet. But let me reposition quickly. I want to go forward. And I wanted to tell you about the guiding techniques. One of the things we first learned was that you only move one vehicle at a time in a sighting. Well, you should. I laid down on the ground. I quickly want to just finish this story, and then we'll have another look at the lions quickly from this angle. And I can tell you about my story then. And basically what happened, we all laid down on the ground, and we had 6 vehicles move around us at once, and it was terrifying. Now imagine when you have the hearing of a lion, how super sensitive it is. It's actually not very pleasant at all. But we're going to hang around, and let's go back across to Byron, who's itching to say good morning to you.
Good morning, everybody, and what a start. My name's Byron, and with me on camera this morning is Brian and the Thumb. Good morning. And it's great to have you with us again on Safari Live. What an amazing start, as I just said, with Taylor. Managed to find the Nkuhuma pride again with another buffalo. Very, very interesting. So myself and Brian this morning, we are in search of leopard. We haven't had any leopard activity for the last few days, and it's not to say they're not around. We have got some updates. Sounds like the female leopard, which we see regularly in this area, Karula, and her 2 cubs are just south of our boundary. They have got a kill down there, so that's good for them. Just a little unfortunate for us, as we haven't seen them for a while. And then apparently there is a big male, I think it was Tingan, they said, which was also just east of our boundary, also with a kill. And we spoke about it yesterday. I think with all this weather that we've been having, there's been quite a lot of rain. A lot of these predators like to hunt in the rain because it's easier to then sneak up and ambush their prey. They're able to well, for one thing, the rain masks their scent and will also cover the sounds that they make, so it makes it a lot easier for them to really stalk very close and ambush their prey. And leopards, as we know, are ambush predators. Oh, see, some elephant have been through here. Look at that, it's amazing how much devastation they can cause. But that's not to say it's a bad thing. Often pushing over trees like that can cause or can create micro ecosystems for other smaller animals, insects and perhaps scrub hares. So it's, I suppose, nature's way of creating more homes for a lot of these smaller little animals and insects. We're going to head towards Buffelshoek Dam. While I do that, let's head back to the lions and see what they're up to.
These are hungry lions today. Over the past couple of days, we've seen the lions picking and choosing from which carcasses they want to feed on, which has been quite sort of unusual to see them being able to pass up so many opportunities. You can see they've heard something in the distance. They're not particularly grabbing their attention. Maybe it's just a bird shuffling through all the leaf litter. But I'm glad to see that they got themselves another meal. I know that those starving cubs would have been excited about it. But I don't think that this carcass is going to last particularly long. It actually seems like... Oh, here we go. Here comes another male. Here comes, I think it looks like Nat.Geo coming off from the left, and that's who they were obviously looking back. Look how beautiful and look how big they're getting now. You can really see how the Birminghams are starting to fill out, how that mane is now going almost onto the shoulder blade, and it'll eventually join with the tufts of hair on the back of their knees. They're starting to look like real big boys. The darkening of the hair, you can see that quite nicely now, and this is spectacular. This is my favorite time of the male lions, is when they just start getting their sort of really filling into themselves and looking like big male lions. And they're not particularly small, the Birminghams, especially, like I said, over the last few weeks that I've been here. I can definitely see a change. He looks nice and full. He doesn't seem too interested in feeding just for the moment. So that's nice that both Nat.Geo and Mfumo are hanging around together. It's great to have that presence in the pride. We know then that no hyenas will be messing with these lions, especially if those males are around. As you can see, those little cubs always getting in the way. Those poor adults just trying to have something to eat, and wherever they eat, well, the little ones are there latching onto the same piece of flesh, trying to pull it out of their mother's mouth. Oh, sorry. And Nat.Geo did something strange, but I don't know if he yawned or if he had something stuck in his mouth. They're looking stunning this morning. X-Ranger, good morning, and I'm so glad that you're watching today. So X-Ranger, you commented saying about... Wait, hang on, before I get to your question, look at this. Now, we know that Nat.Geo is not normally as tolerant as Mfumo, but let's see how far this cub can push it. You are one very brave cub, so take some snapshots, because this is not a very common thing that you see, where this male hasn't turned around and tried to swipe that little kitty cat off its back. Now, little cub, you need to realize that this lion is not buffalo, and you're also playing with fire by doing so. Sorry, X-Ranger. So thanks for all the lovely comments, and just to let you know, we are on day 49 of our cat streak. One more day to go till we hit the big 50, and I hope we do, and I have a feeling we will. But look at this lovely little cub as it's playing on the buffalo head. Yes, that's a much better toy to play with rather than your father, especially when they're not the most tolerant of cats. But isn't this lovely? And they're getting better, and I'm sure you've noticed every time we see them on the kill, the little ones are actually starting to practice valuable techniques that they'll need to use one day when they hunt. Yes, you're getting there, little one. Remember, we are on a live safari at the moment, and we'd love to hear from you. You can either do so by hashtagging Safari Live on Twitter, or you can send us an email at questions@WildEarthTV, and we'll happily try and answer your questions today. But isn't this just a beautiful scene? That's very nice. Quickly snap away, take some shots of them both looking in the same direction. You've got to be so quick out here in the bush. I missed my opportunity, but I'm sure that you all got some fantastic shots. It's quite nice to have a male lion as your backdrop, and of course a buffalo. Isn't that creative? Here we go, little cub. That's behaving a little bit better. Now, I'm really impressed with Nat.Geo, because the last time I saw him, I'm talking about maybe about a month ago, when he decided to come back into the pride, he did not show any tolerance for any of the cubs at all. He swatted them before they even got a meter close to him. He was up and growling. Now, if you look at his right ear, that ear that we can see on the left-hand side of your screen, I don't know if you remembered some of the key identifying features. You can see there's almost a half moon taken out of that ear, so it's his right ear and on our left. Just in case you perhaps just started watching and you're unsure of these different males, that's a very easy way. And then, of course, he's got a big split in his lip, which we can't see right now, but if he turns his head, it's on the left side of his face. Now, we're chatting about their manes and how dark they're getting. I know Kyle has commented this morning saying that he thinks that Tinyo has the darkest mane. I must agree. I think, because I haven't seen Nsuku, the original blondie. I haven't had an opportunity to see him yet, but I believe in terms of size, he's apparently the largest and the oldest, so it'd be quite interesting to see the color of his mane compared to the others. Now, of course, this is all genetic dependent. Sometimes you do just get blonde mane lions. They don't always go dark. You especially see beautiful black mane lions when they have the Kalahari gene in them. That is really, really nice. These little ones are all tucking into that buffalo now. Now you can see this little cub. Of course, we are watching it carefully. This is unfortunately one of the little cubs that has got mange. But you can see, though, even though it has got a little bit of a skin condition, that it is probably one of the most feisty of the cubs. It's always playing, it's always stalking, it's the first one to jump on top of any of the male lions, and of course on top of the buffalo carcass in an attempt to try and re-kill it. And that's what I think is amazing, is this the personality of this lovely little cub. It's just incredible to watch. And that's what we're starting to see now as the cubs get older, is that they are developing their own personality. Some are just quiet and they like to sit on the outside and observe. And we get people like that, of course, and you have others that seem to want to tackle their problems sort of face on, and they don't let life get them down. Very bubbly. You can see the little cub in the tree as well. Be very careful how high you want to go up, because it's a long way down. One of the young males. And also, out of all the lions that I've seen in my years of even going on holiday with my family from when I was younger, I've never seen lions that enjoy the trees so much, and especially here in South Africa. The Nkuhumas, and especially their cubs, have almost mastered climbing up and down and dangling from very low tree branches. There's a bit of a dispute back at the carcass. You can see that little cub on the bottom right there, trying to get in. Hello, look at this. Ooh. Look at Amber Eyes quickly. Look how she's coming right towards us. She's now luring Tinyo away from the kill. Let's just see what he does. He's standing, as you can see, about half a meter away from us. Actually, maybe even a little bit closer. Hello, beautiful boy. Now, Amber Eyes has been acting extremely amorous over the past couple of days. It's quite amazing to see. You can hear there's lots of tension between one of the adult lionesses and the cubs. Now, Tinyo, are you going? Yeah, he's going back around. Amber Eyes has led him away from the pride. She's gone and laid down on the road. No, and he's gone to lay off in the complete opposite direction. Now you can see that cub wants to almost go inside that cavity, but the female's not letting it. Now we're getting to the point where it's going to become a lot easier to start being able to tell the difference between the male and the female cubs. It's very difficult for sort of the first 4 months of their life when they all look the same. And I know that Faith was wondering exactly that. Faith was wanting to know this morning where or how can we tell the difference, and are those traits going to be noticeable soon, and if there's any specific sort of traits that come with being a male or a female at this age. Now, I haven't seen anything specific. Both male and female seem to be quite feisty at this age, especially when they reach 6 months or so. And something that you have to look at, but it is still a little bit difficult, is if you start to look around the chest and on the side of the face of the young male cubs, if they're looking at you, they're going to get tufts of hair sticking out onto the side. We'll try and have a look and find one. There we go. That looks like a young male there. But of course, you can also start to see the little bits developing. You see, he hasn't really got any fluff on his face just yet, so it makes it a little bit harder. But give it another month or two, and I think we'll be in business, and it'll be really, really easy to be able to tell the differences quite nicely. Now I'm going to attack this tree. You've got a whole buffalo to play with, and a buffalo's tail. Why don't you pick that up again? I don't blame Auntie Amber Eyes for moving away from the carcass. I think that she's getting a little bit sick of the cubs harassing her all the time, but hopefully she's going to have cubs of her own for the first time, well, and then she's going to have to put up with them. But we're not going to go anywhere just yet, but I'm going to send you back across to Byron to see what his plans are this morning.
So we're still looking for any sign of leopard activity this morning, and so far no luck. But we're not giving up. Brian and I are confident we're going to have some luck this morning. Something's got to change. And I just heard one of the other guides on the neighboring property say that they went to that site where Tingan was, where he had the kill. It doesn't look like he's there anymore, so he's possibly moved off. So we're checking the boundary very, very carefully, trying to see if we get any tracks. We've got some hyena tracks in the road. There have been a lot of carcasses around here, so I'm sure some of the hyena have been attracted into this area because of the smell. But we haven't seen nearly as many hyenas we saw the last time I was here. So we had that den site active in about June, July, and there was a lot of hyena activity. I think it's possibly because of all the lions around at the moment. Generally, hyena don't like that much competition, and I think with these big Birmingham males around, the hyena probably feel it's safer to move into other areas. And we're just scanning very, very carefully while we're driving. I'm taking a nice slow drive this morning. Don't want to miss anything. And when you are looking for something as elusive as a leopard, it's sometimes needed. Check every tree, every termite mound. It's a lovely morning though, it's nice and cool. The temperature's dropped quite a bit. It's about 20 degrees or 21 degrees Celsius, which is fantastic. Nice to have some cool weather for a change. So Dina has asked us a question from the rain that we had the other day. Dina would like to know, was there any damage from the hail? Dina, I think the only damage was to our little tent. That was damaged a little bit. Some of the poles were bent, and the tarpaulin or the cover, the rain cover, had been blown over. So it was only to the tent, but no major damage to anything else. I wonder how James is going to feel about that when he returns, seeing that his beloved tent has been damaged by the hail. So James is going to be back soon. What day is it today? Wednesday, Thursday? James will be back on Friday, I believe. So, looking forward to James returning. And I'm sure we'll have a few drives together and perhaps a fireside chat. Who knows? That could be fun. Haven't done one with James yet. I haven't done one at all. Very quiet on this side of the property at the moment. Haven't even seen any impala just yet. Amy has asked me a question, and Amy would like to know, well, yesterday we found the start of a little termite mound. Some termites had just started building basically we could call it renovating their little termite mound, the start of a termite mound. Amy would like to know if we can check that a little bit later. We'll definitely go past and have a look, Amy, and see. I think I remember where it is, yes. And see how far they've got, if they've built it even higher. Let's have a good look around here quickly. I think this was the area that Tingan was in yesterday, just east of our boundary. So having a very close look here. Excuse me a second. Go ahead, Herbert. Copy, Herbert. Thank you, and for just keep me updated, please. Thanks. So Herbert's out this morning too with us, and he's giving us a hand trying to see if we can find any leopards. It's always nice having an extra pair of eyes, especially someone as qualified as Herbert or as experienced. You know, he's really, really great tracker and he knows what to look for. Going to carry on having a look around this area. We're going to check very, very carefully. So bear with us. And while we do that, let's head back to Taylor and see how those lions are doing.
They're still arguing with each other. Like I said, that poor lioness at the back is just trying to eat in peace, but she's not able to do so. I think every single cub this morning has either been sort of reprimanded in some way, whether it be by growling or having a little smack from the paw. They are not listening today. But these Nkuhumas, the adults, have been so patient. Look at that one. See how the lioness is trying to eat? She cannot eat in peace. If that lion's head was any smaller, it would probably end up inside her mouth. That poor lion. I don't blame them. You're going to be in trouble, little one, if you carry on acting like that. That's beautiful though, her eyes just poking over the top of the carcass. Little cub is not impressed. No, we're not too far from where the lions were yesterday, and probably a couple of 100 meters from here. And I know that Margaret and Pinchy are wondering if this is a new kill or an old kill. It's actually a new one. They must have killed it last night sometime, perhaps in the early hours of the morning. We heard them all calling, probably around 10:30 or so, somewhere around there last night, and then they continued until the early hours of the morning. So it must have been when they started moving around. It looks like a buffalo cow, and if you remember, a couple of days ago, it could even be a week ago, we saw that buffalo cow at the dam all on her own. And I said to her that she better be quite careful. Perhaps it's her. Maybe she just never regrouped with the rest of the herd. Because it's quite bizarre. I didn't really see too many buffalo tracks around here. Maybe it was just a small breeding herd. But I wonder if it wasn't perhaps that lone buffalo cow. Here comes Amber Eyes coming in from behind again. And she is just looking so beautiful at the moment. Look at her condition. She's healthy and she's quite a big lioness. I think she's stunning for a big girl. Hello Red, and welcome to the show. I know that this is your first time watching it, and we hope that you decide to stick around. Now Red was wondering, how do we tell the difference between the various lions? Red, well, I struggle quite a bit. I'm still learning about them. The males, for me, are probably the easiest, but when we get a good view at them, I shall show you some differences. Now with the females, it becomes a little bit more tricky, and the easiest one to tell apart from the rest is, of course, Amber Eyes, but we can't get a view of her. She's disappeared behind some trees. But as her name suggests, she's got lovely sort of brown, almost orange eyes. And so she's very easy to tell the difference between, because none of the others, hang on, look at, can you see her here? I want to try and reposition. Oh no, there we got a little view. I know it's not the greatest view. Amber Eyes is being incredible. I've never seen her like this. She's very playful. She goes up to the male, she nudges heads with them, and she sort of swipes them a little bit. But it seems to be very friendly and almost playful, which I find to be amazing, because she used to have the complete opposite behavior towards the males. So this is amazing. It's almost like she's had a change of heart. But that is wonderful. Such bizarre behavior. So sorry, Red. Now, that of course, when we get a good shot of Amber Eyes, we'll try and zoom in on her eyes so you can have a better look. Like I said, for the rest of the pride, it's a bit difficult. There's another very young lioness who's got a pink nose. She couldn't be more than about 3 years old. And then, of course, the other three, who are the mothers of the cubs that we have at the moment, they're quite difficult to tell the difference between. However, the oldest mother of the cub, Jamie said to me that she's got a very hairy chin, and I have been able to notice that. There's almost an abundance of hair growing on her chin, which makes it quite easy to spot. Now, the other two, I haven't worked out any identifying features just yet, but maybe some of you who have been watching for quite a few years and have been following the story of the Nkuhumas, maybe you could shed some light and help myself and Red out. Are there any awesome, sort of very easy and obvious identifying features of the lionesses? And you can do that by either hashtagging Safari Live on Twitter or sending us an email, questions@WildEarthTV. But let's very quickly go across to Byron, who has got one of the most beautiful birds in the bush.
Oh, look what we've found, everybody. We've found some ground hornbills. This is great. Looks like 4 of them that we can see. Look there, it's got a beetle. And that one to the right, there are 2 adults and a juvenile. See the dark face of the juvenile and the bright red adults. Bright red face of the adults. And while they're walking around, they are looking for food like insects, and these ground hornbills also feed on reptiles, so lizards or even snakes at times. They've just moved off a little bit, but luckily you can still see them. See that juvenile off to the left? much darker face. I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think it takes him about 6 to 8 years until they reach maturity with the ground hornbills, which is a long time. There you can see that one's still got a little beetle in its beak. Oh, there we go. It's a nice view of them. All 4 of them. These are incredibly endangered, so it's wonderful to see them. They are very rare. They just constantly walk around looking for food. Especially now with all that rain that we had, there has been a sudden increase in dung beetles. All the dung beetles wandering around, the elephant dung and buffalo dung, some of the larger dung beetles. And that's what these birds are looking for. You can see they've found a few already. And they're just moving off into that dense thicket now. So glad we got to see them though, that's fantastic. Something different. And still no luck just yet with any leopard activity, but great to see those ground hornbills. So it just shows you there's always something going on and something different to see. And I've only seen, since I've been here, I saw one ground hornbill the other day. And so it's the first time that I've seen this group, which is great. It's nice to see they've got a little immature ground hornbill with them. So they'll look after that one and hopefully it will reach adulthood. Let us continue and see what else we can find. I'm still checking the road very carefully for any tracks, any sign of leopards. So Connor's just asked a question about the ground hornbills, and Connor wanted to know if the 2 ground hornbills were juvenile. So Connor, no, the one, only the darker one was the juvenile, the immature. The others were all adults, the other 3. So the juveniles are always dark, and then just before they reach adulthood, you'll start seeing that face changing color and becoming that beautiful red coloration. Melinda has asked us a question about the hornbills and whether or not they mate for life. And Linda, it's always a tricky question because if anything happens to one of the others, they'll obviously have to go and look for partners later on. I'm trying to think with the ground hornbills. They do stay within family groups, and I think they do tend to mate for life. I'll have to double check that for you though, because as I say, it can vary, but generally, from what I understand with the ground hornbills, they do. There's a dung beetle just flying past us, looking for some food, some dung. We're heading down to our southern boundary. We're going to have a good look around here, just see if there's been any leopards crossing over onto our side. While I do that, let's see what the lions are up to.
They are doing all sorts of crazy things. They're up in the tree, they're eating the buffalo, they're chasing each other around with a tail. But of course now they seem to have settled down, but I think just for a moment. You can see that's the little one that's got the tail. It was causing all the drama earlier this morning. They're getting very rough now. You can see the 2 in the back up on the top of the tree teasing each other. And one is having a groom from one of the lionesses at the back. And I seem to have so much luck when it comes to the nkuhumas. They always seem to be playing or eating something, and I'm really quite thankful for that. So thank you, lions, because I know how hard it can be to sit and watch them fast asleep On a summer's day, there's almost nothing quite worse. Like I've said to you before, I think I'd rather watch grass grow or paint dry than watch the nkuhumas, or any lions in fact, fast asleep, not even twitching a tail. But then I've also had my most amazing sightings watching lions sleep. Now, speaking about how much they sleep, Roger was wondering, is the reason behind them sleeping so much because they need to conserve energy to hunt? Roger, you are spot on this morning. That is exactly it. Remember, if you had to run around the entire day chasing each other, very much like what we see the cubs doing, expending all their energy, if that opportunity comes around where you need to get up and quickly hunt something because a kudu or a buffalo or a zebra is coming in your path, or perhaps you've gone out on a planned hunt, then you're probably not going to have as much energy. And that's the most important thing. It's not that the lions are lazy. It is vital to their survival that they conserve energy when they are not eating. So well done. It seems as though everybody is getting really, really good. Even all the new viewers that we've had coming on over the last couple of weeks. It's nice to keep hearing you asking questions, and we'd love to hear from you. Remember, there's no such thing as a stupid question or a silly question or anything like that. Ask away. You never know. It might be something that I don't even know. And isn't that amazing? Is that it just shows you that you just cannot know everything out in the bush. I forget what a couple of the sort of very, very well-known wildlife presenters or sort of narrators, and they all say that they probably don't even know 3% about what goes on out here in the wilderness. Now, I was telling you about, I've had some of my best sightings with lions sleep. I've watched lions sleep like the dead before, and I was convinced they were sitting in long grass as well, so you could just every now and then see a tail flick, and I persevered and I sat through it for about an hour, and eventually they randomly just jumped up and started running, and there was some blesbok, which is a type of antelope, came running down the road, and they took advantage of that and they killed 2 blesbok. So from sleeping lions, almost like I said, like they looked like they were dead, to getting up and of course turning into the killing machines which we know they are well capable of becoming. So I thought that was quite spectacular, even though that's not my favorite thing to do, of course. But I suppose these nkuhumas are really growing on me. Like I said, they've fast become my favorite pride of lions that I've ever come across. Now, we haven't really been seeing the cubs playing over the last few days, just because it's been very, very hot. But it's nice and cool this morning. It's only about 70 degrees Fahrenheit, which is lovely. It's very fresh. And of course, that means that these little cubs are going to play and play until they're absolutely exhausted. Oh. Now, we've been chatting quite a bit, you know, of the Birminghams, if anybody else comes in to try and take over, or how long the Birminghams are going to be in rain for. Now, we're not sure. Something could happen tomorrow, and a new coalition of males could come through. Now, Lauren has asked, it's quite interesting, sort of this take of it, would the lionesses or the pride accept a new lion, a new female lion, if she came into the area? Now, I've actually seen this before, and they act very aggressively towards that particular lioness, and I've unfortunately, in a place that I previously worked, where a lion was killed, she came from another area and tried to come through, and well, the pride just wasn't having any of it. I saw it down on the southern sands as well, where the southern pride does not seem to enjoy the Charleston pride, so where the Charleston males originally come from, their mother, and she's joined up with a couple of other lions now. Whenever the southern pride comes across them in their territory, they chase them right out. So I don't necessarily think so. However, there's also a couple of cases, there's obviously both sides to the story, where lionesses have left their original prides and moved on for whatever reason it may be, and I've seen this too, and then they've also been accepted into another pride. But I think it takes a lot of work and I don't think that they'll be accepted almost right off the bat. I think it will probably take a few days, if not even a few weeks. Now, speaking of females joining prides, now Mary, you're wondering if these cubs are going to stay here for the rest of their lives, or if they're going to perhaps move on. Now, the males are definitely going to move on. They unfortunately won't be allowed to stay with the pride. So once they get to about 2.5 years old, depending on how the Birminghams feel about having them around, they will be kicked out and they will have to go and move. And this is where life gets very tough for those male lions, is that they have to live in between the territories of other dominant coalitions and move around and try and stay hidden for the next couple of years until they're old enough to be able to take over a pride of their own. Now, the females will most likely, like I said, there is the odd exception to the rule, but they should theoretically stay with the pride for the rest of their life. And this is, of course, just the females. Almost don't know where to look, hey Eggsy? There's lions doing everything around, just almost everywhere. Some of the lionesses have settled down now for a snooze. Now, this is something that I still have not been able to work out, and Marsha from Oklahoma was wondering, when you get close enough to the lions, do they smell? Now, apparently there's a distinct odor of lions. I can smell wet lions. They smell very much like a wet dog. But I have never been able to pick up this other scent that I've heard guides talk about before. So I can't even describe it to you, unfortunately, Marsha, but I have heard it, not from everybody, but just a couple of people that say that they do have their unique scent. And the indigenous people, so the local Shangans in this area, they can smell the lions very, very well. Often had it many a times where we've stopped to check tracks and my tracker had said to me, I can smell them, they're close by. And, well, we go a couple of meters further forward and you won't believe it, around the corner, or in the drainage line, there they are, fast asleep or doing whatever they may be. But for me, no, I have not acquired the smell, but the animals do typically have a scent. The waterbuck, of course, have that very musky smell. Sort of smells like drain water, which also pretty much smells like a male elephant bull. Of course it's a male if it's a bull. Sorry, I'm having one of those days where I'm just sort of Captain Obvious towards myself. No, sorry. So when the elephant bulls are in must, they have also that drain water smell to them. It's quite strong and pungent. And probably my worst smells is the sweet smell of a wild dog. It smells like a stinky sock that has had cheese in it fermenting. It's a bizarre smell. It's not very nice. And then, of course, the wildebeest, which smells like off butter, which is quite interesting. But that's, of course, what they smell like to me. They could be different to somebody else. Once having a snooze, well, you do very well in Tanzania, little lion cub. You've already got the knack for sleeping up in the trees. Oh, my goodness. Now the little ones are ganging up on each other. You can just see the bushes all moving. Oh, wow. That was a big pounce. They've definitely got more of a spring in their step as they get older. Not so clumsy anymore. After all that playing, I suppose you start to get hungry again, running around, and I think that's exactly what's happening. As I suspect that the cubs are going to chew on this carcass more frequently than the adults. They are burning a lot more energy. Birds are all also just starting to wake up. Now, speaking of coalitions in this area, Andrew wants to know what is the largest coalition of male lions I've seen. Now, Andrew, unfortunately, I haven't had the opportunity to see too many big coalitions. I missed the Mapojos. I think I'd only really just started guiding towards when they sort of ended their reign. I think they, if I'm not mistaken, it was to about 2012 or so. So I wasn't guiding up in this area just yet. I have seen a group of male lions called the Eastern Bank Pride, and they're just male lions. Now they're quite young though. I'm trying to just double check and remember how old they were. The Eastern Bank boys, I think they were about 3.5 years old. And I got to see them a couple of times down in the Southern Sands. And up here, I haven't had the privilege yet to see all 4 Birminghams together. So it has to be the Eastern Bank though. They're going to be quite impressive in a few years' time. And I hope to see them again one day because they were very, very pretty lions. And quite big for their age. They came from sort of northern Kruger and then moved down. So that'll be an interesting pride takeover. Oh, having another squabble. And every time I keep quiet, they then don't make any noises. I think we're going to hear a bit of growling again. That little one sticking its head very close to that female's head, and I'm sure she'll only put up with it for not too much longer. So is it, Kirst, did you say toxigenic? Did I hear that correctly? Wonderful. On toxigenic, you're wondering this morning how many prides do the Birmingham boys sort of see in their territorial range? Well, I think it's just the Nkahumas and then of course the Styx pride. The Tsalalas are sort of keeping a very low profile because of the young males that are there, and of course that one the female, the 2 females, sorry. So I don't think that they're going there. Those ones, they're sort of the Tsalalas seem to move around in between the territories, like I was telling you, and apparently they occasionally pop into the Torchwood Pride as well. I have yet to see any of the Torchwood members, so that's another group of lions that are on my list. But it seems as though they tend to stick around on the sort of areas of Arathusa, Djuma, Cheetah Plains, and Koro. They seem to hang around here more often, which is great for us, of course. I'm very ecstatic about that, to have a resident pride of lions. And I suppose there's no need to go anywhere when there's so many buffalo around. Right, but let's go back across to Byron, who's got another type of bovid for you.
Look at that, everyone. We found some Wildebeest. That's great. I haven't actually seen Wildebeest since I've been here. So nice to see this little group, this herd, small herd. I think we may start seeing more of them because of the little bit of rain that we've had. We're starting to get some green grass shoots coming out, and that's what these Wildebeest love feeding on. It's possibly why we're seeing this group now. Getting back to a question I was asked earlier, Melinda, I think it was asked about the ground hornbill and if they mate for life. I just double checked myself just to make sure, and as I said, they do generally stay together, and they are monogamous, so they do mate for life, Melinda. But again, if one is injured or dies, then the other one will have to find a new mate. Interesting thing with the ground hornbill is how they raise their chicks. So they usually only lay 2 eggs, and whichever one is born first is generally then going to be the stronger one, and usually the other chick dies. And that is one of the reasons why they are so endangered, because the breeding is not very successful. So it's good to see that juvenile or that immature one with those 3 adults. See these wildebeest really enjoying the grass there at the moment. Some lovely grass shoots out at the currently, but it's still fairly dry. We still need a lot more rain, and we still need a lot of food to grow for these animals. You can hear the ground hornbills calling in the distance. It's amazing how far that sound can travel. Because we are quite far from where we saw them earlier. So this is nice, something different. We've been checking along these drainage lines, these thicker areas, because generally leopards do prefer moving through areas like this. They are often known as fringe hunters, which basically means that they like to hunt on the fringe between a clearing or a crest area and the thicket or the drainage lines, because what happens is they're able to move through there and hide very well, and any animals that come close to the edge of that thicket, they're able to then ambush and try and hunt. Something as big as this wildebeest, though, it's unlikely that a leopard would hunt a large wildebeest. I have seen them though with wildebeest calves, or hunting wildebeest calves and hoisting them into trees, especially a big male leopard. That wouldn't be a problem for him at all. But however, these adult wildebeest are a little bit too large. Our strange looking antelope. And that's right, you didn't hear me incorrectly there. They are part of the antelope family. Some people think they are a species of buffalo when they first see them, but they're not. They are completely part of the antelope family. So just like the impala, kudu, the bushbuck, the nyala, all those various antelope species we have around here. Donna's asked us an interesting question. Donna's asked, can humans eat wildebeest? And yes, we can indeed. Because they are part of the antelope species, they're actually very tasty. A lot of the antelope species within Africa, people do eat them. Impala, kudu, springbuck, and you can definitely eat a wildebeest. Game meat, or what we call venison, it's very tasty. And James made a comment, and he said he's looking forward to all the wildebeest births, and those wildebeest have just moved off into the thicket now, into just further carrying on feeding. But James, you're 100% right. Very, very soon we're going to start having wildebeest births, and just like the impala, the wildebeest have a set mating season, and that's usually around April, May, and then what happens is they give birth generally towards the end of November, beginning of December. The impala, it's a little bit sooner. They'll start giving birth, and again, we were speaking about it yesterday. We're going to have to start taking bets to see when the first impala lamb is born. Usually it's beginning to middle of November that they do drop and they do lamb, and usually what happens is they all give birth around the same time. The reason for that is then, just like the wildebeest, with them giving birth at more or less the same time. Sorry, I just thought I heard something behind me. I think think it was perhaps an Egyptian geese. So as I was saying, with them giving birth around the same time, they ensure the safety of the youngsters. It's easier to look after a group of youngsters or lambs as opposed to looking after one. So that's generally a theory of why they all synchronize the birthing, so that it's easier to look after the group. And also what happens then is, if one... Sorry, I can hear something and it's impala. Just want to hear carefully if it's not an alarm call. Actually just sounded like one or two snorts and grunts from males, possibly fighting. So just quickly to end off with the lambs and the calves, as I was saying, what happens is if they all give birth around the same time, it's easier to look after them. And if 1 or 2 or 3 or 4 are killed out of that group or hunted by predators, then there's still a number of them which survive. And that's why we do tend to see a lot of impala and a lot of wildebeest in certain areas. Those calls have stopped now, but it was definitely an impala's snort or grunt, but it sounded like 1 or 2 males because I actually just heard it moving, and that's usually what happens when the males are fighting. They may snort or grunt and chase each other. Alarm calls, it's usually a set. You can hear the antelope, or especially impala, will stand, they'll alarm call and then run, so you won't necessarily get the alarm calls with them moving. But yeah, there's nothing again. I think it was just some males. But it just shows you stopping and listening like that is very important. So Marco has asked us a question about the wildebeest and giving birth. And Marco would like to know, do the wildebeest return to the same area every year to give birth? So Marco, in these areas in southern Africa, we don't have migrations like you get up in north or east Africa rather. You have those huge migrations of millions of wildebeest. They will generally return to certain areas and give birth. Whereas out here, they'll give birth just about anywhere, but usually they stay in areas where the food is good, the open grasslands. That's the type of terrain they enjoy. So it's not a case, I think, of them really returning to the same area because they don't migrate. They will always be in this area. But in East Africa with the migrations, they do return within certain areas because that's where the food is and the water, and that's where they will give birth. So East Africa is very different to where we are down in Southern Africa, and there I think it is a case of them returning to the same area to give birth. We're going to continue our search. There's a lot of impala around, so it doesn't look like leopard activity around here at the moment, but who knows, they could be hiding in the thickets. Let's head back to Taylor and get an update on those lions.
They are still eating, and of course the cubs are still being a nuisance to the adults. So it seems to have got a lot quieter here now, but you can see that female, she gets agitated every now and then. And they're still munching away. Now there isn't much left on this carcass, so they need to try and, well, everybody needs to try and eat as much as they can. So if you hear me pause randomly, it's because they're making nice noises. Well, nice noises to my ears. Not behaving very nicely towards that cub, or the cub not behaving, you know, appropriately around the dinner table. I'm sure you can hear all the little birds chirping as well. It's quite beautiful. Now we're waiting hopefully Amber Cubs is going to have her first set of cubs, and that be exciting. And I know that I Walk in the Rain was wondering if any of these cubs at the moment that we're seeing have any dark eyes like her. I haven't seen anything just yet. It's the typical sort of golden yellow colour. But you never know, possibly it might change. Some of the little ones haven't quite got their permanent eye colour just yet, like the one that we're looking at. You can see it's lovely and golden. But if Amber Eyes has cubs, perhaps that's going to be a trait that she passes on to some of her cubs, and wouldn't that be amazing? She's honestly, she's such a stunning lion. Every time I see her, she grows on me more and more. She reminds me of a young lioness that I absolutely loved when I was guiding down in the Eastern Cape. But she didn't have beautiful eyes like Amber Eyes, of course. Not happy at all. No, Roger, thank you. Made me have a good chuckle this morning. The way Roger started his comment was, my cat is not very social. And I had a good giggle about that, because I can just picture, Roger, I can just picture your cat when you're going in to pat it on the head and it's sort of turning its bum towards you and then walking off, not interested at all. I thought that was quite funny, just to paint a picture of what I was thinking about. Now, Roger, you want to know why that the lions are so social compared to tigers and leopards and jaguar, which tend to be on more of the solitary side. I'm not sure why the lions have evolved in order or to be so social, and obviously it was an evolutionary trait that worked on their side. I mean, living in a group, you have a better advantage of hunting, and obviously survival out in the bush becomes a little bit easier because there's more of you to help protect each other. You're not just watching your own back. I've never really read anything that says exactly why lions are social compared to other cats. I think it was just something that happened as evolution sort of continued. But I think, like I said, I think it was a great trait. I mean, there's no other cats in the world that are social. It's just the lions. Isn't that amazing how everybody else is still stuck to the solitary way, yet these super cats have joined up. Imagine if tigers were in a group together. I don't know what you would call the collective noun for a group of tigers would be. That would then be impressive. Of course, the tigers are much larger than lions. And they, my goodness, I don't know, if they were living in Africa, if we had tigers in Africa, I reckon they'd be taking down elephants if they lived in groups together. They are so powerful. There's a pair of crested francolins that are chirping in the background. They keep coming closer and closer. Hello, M. Dixon, who is currently a new viewer. Well, welcome. You're not a new viewer now because you're watching us, and I hope that you stay and become one of the permanent viewers. We'd love to keep hearing from you. Now, you're wondering, why am I not being attacked when the lions are so close? So we are currently situated on Djuma Private Game Reserve, which is a private sort of concession that is a part of the greater Kruger area, and in total the animals have got about 8.5 million acres of land to roam around on. Now, we've been interacting with these animals in vehicles for over 30 years. We don't feed them, they hunt for themselves, we don't pet them, they are completely wild. And now, by coming in and slowly habituating the animals to the vehicles, they eventually forget that we're even there, and they don't mind us at all. So I don't look like food. I don't look like a buffalo or a wildebeest or a zebra. In fact, when I get out of the vehicle, the animals are actually quite scared of me, and that's just unfortunately due to all the hunting that went on when the Europeans first started arriving in Africa for food, obviously for trading of various sort of rare items, from ivory to rhino horn to the different animal skins, all those types of things. And they now have this almost, I suppose you could call it an inbred fear. When they see our figure with our heads positioned on the front of our heads, we look like a predator too. They'll often run from us. But in the vehicle, I don't behave like a human. I'm completely neutral. I sound and I smell like a human, like I said, but I'm not behaving like one, so they don't bother by us. They actually sometimes walk right past the vehicle, which is quite amazing. And I find as though that the cats are the easiest to habituate. They don't mind us at all. Here we go, having a big groom on that big belly. That's an interesting position. That lion can almost touch its toes with its nose. I don't think I'd ever be able to do that. Very flexible, these little cats. No, rolling back now. Covered in blood. Now, that little one's not going to be able to groom its own face, so it's going to have to get somebody else to groom it for him. There you go. This lioness is done eating now. Off you go. Now watch, these little ones, I bet what will happen, it probably won't now because I'm going to say this, but I always think it's so funny that they harass these poor lionesses, and then when they move away, well, then it's not fun anymore, and then they go too. So we'll see how long they hang around on this carcass. Chewing away. It's now very quiet. They're not fighting and squabbling with each other at all. So, as I mentioned, I was unsure of the collective name of tigers. I believe that you're all trying to guess and come up with some good ones, so I'd love to actually hear from you. I believe some of them are sort of streak or an ambush of tigers. They're brilliant. And I always think, I don't think you should have one collective name for a group of animals. It's nice to come up with all sorts of different ones. And that was something I used to be quite good at when I was a younger guide. I used to try and learn all the various collective nouns, or actually try and come up with some with my guests as we go along, and we'd have a good laugh. Margaret, your collective noun for the tigers is that it should be lots of stripe and fur. That's a good one. Definitely no shortage of stripes, and they do seem to be quite hairy cats. I don't think they have as slick coats as the lions. But I suppose when you're living in the jungle, it's a little bit cooler than what it is out here. If you hear some strange rumbling noises, don't worry, it's just my stomach. And I don't know why, because that buffalo carcass doesn't look very appetizing to me. Look at those little cubs now, very happy that they've got the entire carcass to themselves. You can see that little one at the back's got a little nick in its ear. Can you see that? Top left. Now I wonder if that's perhaps not from being reprimanded by one of the lionesses and then her just nicking its ear, but it's just not a bad injury. It'll heal fairly quickly. And in the cavity of the stomach they go. Come on, little ones, you could fit inside there. Full belly, leg up. David Ryan, you are full of jokes this morning. I remember when you came up with the tiger horse for the zebra, and now you said that and I love this one. I think this is my favorite so far. And you've said that the tigers should be called zebra cats, and I think that that's a brilliant one. That is hysterical. So one day when I eventually get a photo of a tiger or have the opportunity to perhaps head into India and see them roaming in the wild, that will be the caption of my very first photo. And I think it's a brilliant one. The zebra cats. I love that. Fast asleep peacefully without being annoyed by the cubs for the moment. You can see there's lots of little flies around, and the flies that are out at the moment are a bit frustrating because they seem to be biting flies. I don't know what sort they are, but they are these tiny little ones, bigger than a midge, and they nip you, and it is so sore. So I can imagine that's probably also what's biting the cat's ears, one of those little sensitive areas, and making them jump occasionally. But you can see them, they're tiny little flies. They're not the big blue and green flies that we often see on top of the carcasses or the normal house fly. It's something a little bit different. We'll stick with these nkuhumas perhaps for a little bit longer. There doesn't seem to be too much pressure on the sighting just yet. But while we do so, let's go back across and get an update from Byron.
So great that we're able to spend so much time with those lions. I'm on the road where we had all those termites yesterday. Just trying to see, it looks like these ones have closed up the holes over here, but you can see that it's very, very fresh. Still from the last day or from yesterday where these termites were busy building. No activity there. We had a question about the little few termites that we found in the road. They were starting to build a little termite mound, or the beginning of that. Let's see, and it's just up ahead. So let's see how far they've got. There we go. Straight ahead in the road. It's still there. It's much, or I wouldn't say much. It's a little bit taller than yesterday. There we go. So Amy, I think it was you who asked about the termites in the road. Have a look at that. So they have made it a little bit taller, but it doesn't look like there's too much activity there. However, can you see that hole is still open? I'm actually going to jump out quickly and just have a look there for you, Amy. Let's see what we can find. Make sure there's no leopard hiding in the bushes nearby. Actually, it's very active at the moment, Amy. And for everyone else watching, very small little termites all building, but it's very difficult. You probably won't see it from the angle that you are at because it's a little bit lower down. It's this flat section right over here, and they're all just inside, and they're busy building around the edge of this little termite mound. Not quite a mound yet, this little termite tunnel that they've started to build, and they're fixing all over. These workers are busy fixing and packing all the dirt and sand that they are bringing out of the soil, and they mix it with their saliva and their feces actually, and that mixture with the soil then is what they use to build these little tunnels, these funnel shaped tunnels, and eventually it may turn out to be a mound one day. That's very interesting. So there is still activity, and I think it's because there's still so much moisture in the air. So that's when these termites start becoming a lot more active. And so it's great that we could see them still very, very busy. That other one didn't, that looked like it was closed. So those termites are possibly just maybe resting. And also what happens is in cooler weather, they'll often try and close that termite mound up so that they can regulate the temperature to about 32 to 34 degrees Celsius within that mound. So there we go, Amy. Hope you Happy that you got to see these termites again. Nice. Luckily it's not tall enough that I'll hit it, so I'll still drive over it. I won't damage it at all. Well, not over it, just yeah. That's still fine. It's been a bit of a quiet morning for Brian and I. We haven't seen too much. I wonder if it hasn't got something to do with this weather. And the temperature is quite cool. You can see, oh, we've got some elephant off to the right. Just as I say that, the bush helps us out. Hang on a second, I'm just going to turn around on this road. We might be able to get a little bit closer from that angle, from that side. Oh, and look here, some warthog. Just off to the right, don't run. There they go, just ran off there a little bit. There they are. Just as I say, we haven't seen too much. Warthog and elephant. That's great. I was saying, I wonder if the weather hasn't got something to do with it. Let me just turn around and head along this other road quickly. I wonder if the weather hasn't got something to do with it, because the temperature has dropped quite a bit from when we first went out on drive this morning. You can see I've got my jacket on, Brian's got his jacket on. It's much, much cooler. One of the coolest mornings that we've had in the last few days. So it's actually very pleasant. It's lovely to have some cool weather for a change. Our warthogs are still off to the left. Oh, there we go. Now have a look at this. You can see this clearly now. See those long white hairs on the side of the face, and you can see there. Look at that, especially on that youngster. That is a younger warthog, a young female. The adult one was the one with the larger tusks. Was walking in the front. There we go, and you can see that, and see those big tusks. So the theory behind that long white hair is that when these young warthog grow these long whiskers or long white hair, it appears as if they've also got large tusks. So if predators do see them and are trying to hunt them, they probably think twice, because they think maybe they're also armed with those large tusks like an adult. So it's a defense mechanism. It's to try and deter predators from hunting them. And you could see on the adult, you could see those white tusks. They're almost in the same position. She also had some long white whiskers. It's also just to make sure that they stand out a little bit more. There we go. Let's have a look at our elephant off to our right. Just going to try and get us a nice little gap here. It's just actually hiding behind there now. How about through there, Brian? Is that okay? Look at that. Looks like a lone bull. Don't see any others around here. Just a young-ish bull. And he's just feeding happily on that tree. He looks so peaceful, so relaxed. Almost like he's watching us through there. But happily feeding away. These bull elephants are my favorite. There's just something about them. I think you could describe them as graceful. And just magnificent. I think that's even better. It's just, they are really magnificent animals. These wonderfully large beasts which walk the earth. It's incredible to be able to see them. We've been lucky almost on a daily basis. I think every drive we've seen elephant, which is great. There's a lot of elephant around at the moment. I love spending time with them. Look at those toenails. You can see the toenails on the feet. It's almost like this male is resting a little bit too. He is feeding, chewing on some branches. You can see there, but he's not really using his trunk too much. Probably resting a little bit. They do rest when they're standing up occasionally, and you saw him shift his weight a little bit there, but I've seen elephants where they lean to one side and they'll just rest, and not quite doze off, but close their eyes, rest a little bit, and then they go again. Elephants do lie down though too if they do want to sleep or rest, but again, these animals don't sleep like we do. They don't need a lot of sleep. They will rest, however, and I have seen on a number of occasions elephants lying down completely on their side and having an hour rest. A lot of bird calls in the distance. You can hear the red-chested cuckoo again. We were so fortunate we got to see one yesterday morning. That was great. And don't forget, all our viewers watching at the moment, send us your questions and comments either via Twitter at #SafariLive or email us questions@WildEarthTV, and we'll answer your questions, and we just love hearing from all of you. I always need to pinch myself at times just to basically remind myself that this is live and we've got viewers from all over the world watching, and it's incredible that we can be in the middle of Africa looking for animals and viewing them like this, and as we see it, you are seeing it back home. It really is fantastic. This hopefully sparks an interest. And perhaps some of you one day will come out on safari in South Africa, or in Africa in general, anywhere. Come and enjoy this with us. You can see that elephants actually strip the bark off of that branch. Wow. Look how he uses his tusks. And that's one of the main reasons for the tusks. That's why males and females have tusks. It's to help them break branches and feed. Wow, look at that. That's awesome. I think he's trying to get to more bark. Here we go. You might try and strip that off. Let's see. See, now he uses the trunk. Yeah. And he's stripping the bark off. So the bark is that little section of the tree that has all the nutrients and has basically the good stuff that the elephants want to feed on. It's got a cambium layer, which is the layer that transports the nutrients to the tree, and that's why they love feeding on bark. William has just asked us a question. I'm not sure if I heard it correctly. I think William asked, do elephants cry? And William, to be honest, I don't think so. I've never seen or heard of that before. I don't think elephants cry at all. You can occasionally you'll see residue and liquid forming around the eyes, but I definitely do not think it's tears. It's just like we sometimes get residue around our eyes when we wake up in the mornings. Similar thing happens with the elephants. You'll sometimes see this whitish substance around their eyes, but I've never seen an elephant cry.